Hey, everybody, it's John Bell and Tom Hoyer with The Reset. Happy holidays from us to you. Hope everything's going great. Hope you're having fun with loved ones, family, friends, pets, etc. Tom and I are going to just have an informal chat. We're going to kind of, year-end tradition sort of thing. We're going to try making some predictions, what's going to happen in the new year. And then hopefully for the end of next year, we'll review this and see how many we got right and what we got wrong. But we're going to be bold and make some claims here on the show, and you can hold us accountable.
That's right. Bold predictions indeed. And so bold, although that's somewhat cliched, but to differentiate the reset, I actually wrote them in bold to make sure that we're serious about this.
That kind of looks like, Tom, that looks a little bit like a Donald Trump Sharpie kind of action there.
It is, because at this point in my life, I don't want to be looking at a piece of paper with writing on it and thinking it's little tiny ants crawling all over the place. So I write it bold so that I can see it. And that is for your benefit, the viewer, as well. Right, this is our inaugural predictions for 2026. I'm going to throw some in there that might be kind of fun. There's certainly going to be those from or at least my personal perspective. And in many cases, you might find that you hope they don't happen. And, I would share that sentiment with you. The first one I want to talk about here, and this is as a gambler, and this is a little bit of an optimist on my part, as you can see, my coffee cup. Optimist, international friend of youth. So I'm speaking from that. I think we'll take both the House and the Senate. We need 4 seats. Republicans are defending 22 of the 35 seats. I would say that it's going to be a challenge because most of these seats are in deep red states. And, my thought on this is that because red states are primarily rural, small population states, they don't get a lot of attention in the media. So it's difficult to say what's actually happening there in the weeds. But I'm from a red state, a deeply red state. And just on my Facebook feed alone, which I rarely go to, but go check to see who's died, etc. You don't see the same level of the Trump repost. Nobody actually creates content down there. They just kind of repost what someone else has said without validating it. You don't see that too much in my feed anymore. And that tells me that, or at least I take from that there may be something of a shift down there. Hard to say. But in North Carolina, Tilson's retiring. Roy Cooper, the former governor who has a history of winning, is running. That could be a pickup. In Maine, Susan Collins, I feel, may be at risk there to lose her seat to a Democrat. Of course, we favor Graham Plattner here. And want to try to support him. So I would say check him out if you haven't already. In Ohio, Sherrod Brown, as a former senator to take on the appointed John Husted. That could be a pickup. And of course, in Florida, even though that's a very difficult read down there, this is going to happen in March. The Rubio vacancy. We've got some candidates down there. Ashley Moody is the appointed senator there, but that could very well be something to watch here early in the year. So, and finally, in Texas, Cornyn holds a 2 to 6% advantage over the Democratic candidate, which is, whichever Democratic candidate, which I think is very vulnerable because I think, stepping back and looking at this thing, Trump is going to continue to create this scenario of just complete and total chaos. We don't know where he's going from a day-to-day basis. He's clearly in decline. I think there are a lot of Republicans in Congress itself that look at this situation and are carefully measuring their next step because I think he's a sinking ship. And they're obviously self-preservationists and they're looking for the lifeboats. It's going to be a very interesting thing because, my thing is like this guy needs to be impeached and removed, not just because of all the things he's done, but I've always stated that it's an important message to send to the world. I think our standing has just been decimated. Everybody looks at us like we've completely lost our mind and we're idiots. If we can demonstrate that we can,
They have a point.
Can't argue it. But if we can impeach this guy, including the 2/3 of the Senate, which obviously need to include some Republicans, that would send a message to say, hey, we can take care of our own stuff, right? So
yeah,
I'm hoping that something will happen along those lines here in the next year.
So
Johnny?
let me respond to that, and then I'll make my own prediction, and it sort of has some relationship there to what you said, Tom. I can endorse your prediction. I think that if you look at where things stand today based on this year's election results that we've had so far, you look at the polling, you look at just kind of all the various potential leading indicators heading into next year's midterms, and it's without, some type of massive shift uh, against the Democrats pro-Trump, which, it's hard to imagine. It's really difficult to see them holding the House, for one.
Right.
So I think half of your prediction may not be a done deal because I do think there's a lot of chicanery and things that they're going to try, but I just don't see any way that they manage to hold the House. And then as far as the Senate, I think you hit on a bunch of, certainly, looking at North Carolina, Ohio, Maine, for sure. Texas, I think we should hold out some hope. I mean, I think Democrats need to start, competing everywhere. And I think that starts with local and state races, and I think you're starting to see Democrats compete more broadly across the country, even in red states and red areas. And there's a lot of encouraging things happening in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have some states that have a history of potentially electing statewide Democrats. I mean, Kansas has had, and I'm not necessarily I don't even know if they have somebody competing next year for a Senate seat. But point being is, I think, Iowa definitely. Iowa's senator is not running for reelection, so there's an opening there. And while Iowa's trended a lot more toward in the red direction in recent years, it does have an independent streak there. And I just think I think there's room for some surprises, and then it's gonna kind of tie in my prediction, which is I think that Trump's popularity is going to continue to degrade. I believe that his base is starting to fracture. I think there's infighting that's becoming more and more apparent in the MAGA movement, which is synonymous with the Republican Party. There's no difference in my mind, but like, yeah, I think you're starting to see that come apart. More and more people, including Republican or conservative pundits, commentators, and politicians, are increasingly viewing Trump as a lame duck, and that's going to accelerate in the new year. I think he's going to continue to appear to be weaker, both in appearance and reality. You've seen that, both with the legislation that was passed about the Epstein files and certain other things that are happening, more and more Republicans are willing to
Right.
go against Trump. And so let's just, for sake of argument, this isn't a scientific polling average. And I see some polls continue to show Trump support in the low 40s. I don't think that's really accurate in terms of the national sentiment. I think it's more to the tune of being in the 30s. And while I don't know that Trump is you know, gonna go as low as the 20s, I think he could in certain polls, and I think he's gonna continue to trend into the low 30s. And if that happens, all of the things you were talking about, Tom, become really possible. Like, it's certainly taking the Senate. At some point, the so-called Republican establishment, or just Republican politicians thinking about their own self-interest, are going to have to look at this and say, I may be a rat, and it may be time to jump off the ship. So they're gonna look at things now. Does that result in Trump being impeached in the House and convicted in the Senate? I don't think I'll go that far, though I do think if that happened, that would be an incredible message to the country and to the world at large. That we've chosen not to become this type of society. But I definitely think that this is going to be a momentous midterm election, and ultimately that will provide a huge check on Trump's power, and will, at least for the time being, prevent us from descending into authoritarianism. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
Okay. How about who's leaving in 2026? Here are my three. I think Bondi's out before warm weather returns. I think Chrissy Nome, the Ice Barbie, will be out before the end of this year, as well as Hegseth. I just think that these are roles that are under high scrutiny. It's a lot in the press. It's going to be increasingly difficult for them to, and I think there's something going on with Nome and Trump now that I don't think he's happy with her at all. And
Yeah.
those are my three picks that'll be leaving before 2026 in the cabinet.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you on that. I would throw in, yeah, I mean, well, let's go through those. Hegseth, I think it's really hard for me to come up with anything other than the fact that I know Trump didn't want to have a revolving door year one, uh, unlike his first term. So I think there's been a concerted effort to stick with the absolutely pathetic, terrible picks that they made. But I don't see what he brings to the table. He's unstable. He uh, he doesn't represent himself well. He doesn't acquit himself well in front of the camera. He sounds like an idiot, and someone that should not be leading our military. And the scuttlebutt is that he's extremely disliked pretty much across the board within the administration. So I definitely think Hegseth may go. Um, Ice Barbie, I mean, I love a cosplaying woman. Don't get me wrong, but no, not like that. She's a very bizarre individual, and by all the rumors surrounding her, I don't know what it is, whether it's her very well known affair going on with Corey Lewandowski, her right hand man in more ways than one, apparently. Yeah, I don't think they're happy with her. I don't know what it's all about because it's not like Donald Trump is uh, you know worried about being ashamed of anything, but there's definitely some unrest there. What was your third one?
It was Bondi, Christy Nome, and
Oh,
Hegseth.
Bondi. Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's screwed up, all the Epstein,
That's it.
process in
Yeah.
more ways than you can count. On
Right.
one hand, she's trying not to release stuff that embarrasses Trump, but as the more they release and the more mistakes they made, like some of the documents, it's been really easy apparently to unredact them. Like they haven't properly digitally redacted these files, so like people
Exactly.
are like cutting and pasting them. They're like, oh, here's the full text and what happened. So there's more and more information that's embarrassing to Trump that is coming out. And that, again, it's my opinion, my First Amendment right to express this to anybody from the administration who's listening to this. But it kind of becomes impossible in my mind not to think that not only was Trump aware of all of this, like he was involved in at least some of the wrongdoing. I mean, there's just so many
Photos.
really incriminating facts and associations and
Ugh.
I really do think that like they have hidden the worst of it. Um, a lot of the witness interviews, the 302 statements that have not been released, which are really where kind of the naming names would take place. I think that that's yet to come out, but it will come out. And I think that some of the victims are, even if they don't, they're going to stand up and go ahead and make accusations.
Hmm.
And so I think there's that. What's odd though is that like Bondi's bent over backwards. She's willing to do anything for Trump, go after his political enemies, but that doesn't always. I mean, at his core, Trump is not a loyal guy.
Right.
So there is a lot of there's a lot of noise around Bondi and people that aren't happy with her. Some people that I'd add to that list, which I think is probably, I think that's probably the top three, but I think they're getting very tired of Kash Patel, who is a fucking boob, a moron, a poser, a charlatan, and just a weird, bug-eyed freak in my book. But anyway, um, the reason I think Cash is on the list is that he's just making the administration look terrible.
Right.
Um, you know, he's running around in his FBI jet to private hunting trips, going to
His
see
girlfriend.
his 27-year-old country singer girlfriend. He's a, you know, he had to stand up for her and claim what an amazing American she is and how she's done more for this country. I'm like, what the fuck has she done for this country? But
Right.
anyway, he's embarrassing them that way. They're like the rank and file in the FBI, even though they trend conservative, it's clear that he's hated within the organization. He is despised within the organization. Every chance they have to leak stuff, like when Charlie Kirk was killed, he's like such a diva. He wouldn't get off the jet because he wanted a task force jacket so he could look cool while he was parading around, acting like he's doing law enforcement shit. And he wouldn't get off the airplane until and apparently the only one that they could get that to fit him was from a female agent, which I think is pretty funny. So he's wearing, and I have nothing against this. I sometimes parade around in women's clothing, but like I don't think that's what. I'm kidding, I don't. But you know, I don't think that's the vibe. You know, Cash is trying to give off. But anyway, so a female agent gave up her jacket, but then he still wouldn't get off the plane because he didn't have enough cool badges, like for the little Velcro spots on the arms. So they had to go find him some more badges and patches to make him look like he's a legitimate FBI guy. And a bunch of other stuff. Like he's just a boob. I mean, he's really a pathetic caricature. And so I think they're tiring of him. And also nobody else likes him. Like Bondi hates him.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think the knives are out. And I think that's true, like within the MAGA movement. Somebody that should be on the list, but I don't think is on the list because I think he's like one of probably, if you think about how many Americans are going to die because of this pathetic
RFK.
psychopath. Yeah,
Yeah.
RFK Jr. should be on the list, but I think he has something going in the conservative movement because of his anti-vax history and his just weird, you know, bizarre anti-science stance that's appealing to some of those people. But he's going to kill a lot of people. He's already killed a lot of people uh, uh, in by limiting access to vaccines, uh, you know, uh, undermining the entire health organization, the whole health infrastructure of the country. He's set research back, you know, in some cases, maybe years, even decades. So he's a dangerous, dangerous man who should have never had the job. But I don't think I don't see him going.
No.
Of course, who knows? He's such a freak that he could end up doing something that, you know, Trump or the administration finds incredibly embarrassing at some point. But as it stands, like he would be on my list, but I think he's safe for now. Um, and yeah, but I do think there's going to be some significant turnover, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we just don't know how Trump responds the more desperate he becomes. You know, as we get closer to the election, it will be interesting, but it'll be very unsettling. I just think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to make history, and we're just going to have to basically make sure that we're ever vigilant. I mean, I think this guy is definitely going to try to lean on it, and could get ugly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my prediction is pain. Um, that's kind of like the old Rocky movie. Pain and more pain. I think you're right. I think there're gonna be things that happen uh, that I mean, some of which we kind of anticipate. Uh, I do think there's a good chance that they'll try to invoke the Insurrection Act, and you know, do things like, you know, deploy military. Uh, I mean, clearly, I wouldn't put anything past these people, uh, and I do think that there's some signs that the Supreme Court may be drawing a line, but again, I just, you know, they've shown such fealty and obedience to Trump and the idea of a unitary executive, which basically effectively means a king, that I don't I don't trust them for a second, but I also think that they may be reading, the tea leaves themselves and wanting to prevent some of the worst excesses. But yeah, 2026 is going to be a very challenging year. I mean, you saw what Trump was willing to do uh, in reaction to the 2020 election where he lost. I think that he's deathly afraid of Democrats, taking the House and potentially taking the Senate, both in terms of being a lame duck, but potentially opening up either the chances of impeachment or just, more accountability. And, ultimately, I think if Democrats manage to take power in the two houses, the prospect of accountability for his administration in general and potentially himself once he leaves office goes up a lot more. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly, if we ended up with a president just Dance Vance, then he could escape accountability. But the likelihood of that, I think, is very low if they don't manage to cheat in the midterms successfully. So I agree. I think that 2026 is going to be exceptionally difficult. And another prediction that I have along those lines is I think that the economy is going to continue to get worse. And I'd like to say for everybody out there, I think this was somewhat a good lesson during the Biden administration. And it's true during the Trump administration is that, recently there was a really I have a great deal of skepticism, but there was a strong GDP report. So for the prior quarter,
Yes.
supposedly GDP rose by 4.3%. Now, they fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics,
Right.
and I know they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal in every aspect of their lives. They're willing to, lie to the American people ad nauseum and to steal our tax money. So I wouldn't put it past them to try to cheat on the numbers. But even like, let's accept at face value the 4.3%. About half of that is because of investment in AI,
In AI.
which is not benefiting anybody other than the tech oligarchs
That's correct.
um, right now, or people that are invested in those companies. And so that brings it down, to in the low twos. And I also think that there's a lot of that is consumption by the top 50% in the economy or the top
That's right.
10%, but it's people with money that are
Right.
still have, the ability and the willingness to buy. I think if you look at a lot of other indicators, I think the economy is going to continue to tank in 2026. I think unemployment is going to continue to go up to, unsustainable levels. I think that inflation is going to continue to go up. The Supreme Court may bail them out and rule as tariffs unlawful, but they've already got some workarounds that are probably illegal as well. But they're gonna try to continue their tariff regime against all better advice and economic sanity. And I just think that all their decision making is driven on grift and graft and what can they make out of a particular deal.
Right.
um it's not about how do we grow the economy, how do we do it sustainably, how do we make sure that whatever growth does happen in the economy happens broadly and benefits the most people. So that's not part of their calculus. So I just think that uh at least from the perspective of regular people in the middle class and the working class, things are just going to continue to be unaffordable, and joblessness is going to go up. And
Yep.
at the same time, they're continuing to try to take away benefits or any aspects of the social safety net. So, you know, and it's going to be felt more and more by a broader cross section of the population. And ultimately, I think that that impacts, that goes back to, I think, the softening in the MAGA base, because you have people, whether it's, people that rely on SNAP, or they rely on Medicaid, or they live in rural areas where hospitals and health clinics are being, essentially forced to shut down because of the big, ugly, horrible bill that they passed and the tax cuts to billionaires. So I think the economic situation is just going to continue to trend negatively, which I think it's going to self-reinforce the opportunity in the midterms to have a big wave election. So unfortunately, maybe it has to get worse before things get better.
Well, yeah, that's exactly my thought as well. I think for my next prediction that we're going to have increased unemployment,
Yes.
and AI is rapidly integrating with everything that we do. It's going to continue to displace workers. That has a ripple effect throughout the economy. Uh,
Yeah.
once,
And
yeah,
one thing, Tom, I want to highlight there, because I agree with you. I mean, I think, well, I'll have a prediction on AI that it doesn't totally run counter to what you're saying, but it's a little bit of a different take. But back to your prediction, I think one area where you're seeing it have a really large effect is with youth unemployment. Um, because I think even though some of the jobs haven't necessarily been automated yet, I think companies are really hesitant to hire for entry level positions because they do think that there'll be more opportunities to automate people out of those jobs sooner rather than later. So they're holding back on hiring, and you're
that's right.
seeing that reflected. Like, I think the youth unemployment, or entry level unemployment is double, probably even triple
Yeah,
that of other
I've heard
parts of
it's
the
around
economy.
10% now. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is huge. Yeah, I mean, so I think that that's going to continue. Um, and it's interesting that no one is really seriously talking about it. Either side is should be ringing the bell about it, saying we need to have some kind of plan. This is happening so quickly. All we're focused on is the next election, and then the next 3-year election, and that's all because that's their job to get reelected, it appears. And they're not talking about this, and it's going to have serious consequences across the board. As I've said before, you start having a large population uh, unemployed, large percentage of the population unemployed, then it ripples throughout the economy and it starts to drag it down, and then everybody feels it.
Oh, big time. I mean, if you believe some of the predictions, uh, even for the near term, the next year, 2 years, I've heard numbers as high as 20, 30% of jobs being eliminated. And we haven't seen anything like that since the Great Depression, which means
Right,
basically nobody,
right,
practically nobody that's alive today has ever experienced something this momentous and catastrophic in the economy. And I was thinking about this the other day, that, like, I can't recall any time that, whether it was in response to manufacturing jobs being offshore because of NAFTA and other free trade deals, or other uh, transitions and disruptions in the economy, the idea that we don't have a plan in place and that we're just leaving it up to business leaders to come up with a solution is scary as can be. Because first of all, when they talk about retraining and reskilling, it's a bunch of hot air. It's a bunch of
it
bullshit.
always has been.
It
Yeah,
always has been. Like, they don't, like, even if they had good intentions, it's not effective. And there's not, like, if you do away with 50 million jobs on one hand, like just assuming that there's going to be 50,000 or
Right.
50 million alternative jobs on the
Right.
other hand that you retrain people to
Right.
is just, farcical. So I think that the danger to the economy and to our society is real. And because we have a lawless uh, a regime that is just there with their hand out trying to take the VIG and operate like a bunch of mafia dons.
Right.
They don't care. Like if Nvidia or Elon Musk or whoever it happens to be is willing to stroke them a check or cut them in on some type of deal or side deal and make them money, they're going to let them do whatever it is that they want to do. And they're doing it across the board. They're doing it with petroleum companies. They're doing it in tech and AI, social media, traditional media, you name it. They're letting these guys consolidate and move us in a direction where, at a bare minimum, we should be having a national debate about what are the ramifications. Do we want to do this as a society? And we need to stop letting these billionaires decide our future for us.
Right.
Like these are not, they don't give a shit about society, man. Like that's not part of their calculus. They're trying to figure out how to make their next billion, or how do I, like, they are so empty, inside, that I guarantee you, like, they look at Elon Musk and they're like, oh, well, he might be the next trillionaire. Well, how can I
Billionaire.
beat him? Because I want to
Right.
be the next trillionaire.
Correct.
And it's
Yes.
like, and nobody's questioning, like, well, what does that mean for everybody? And is that even something that should be able to happen? And, so this, like, okay, so I've got a prediction on this, Tom, and it's not going to totally stop the AI train, but it is, I think I'm willing to make the prediction now. A lot of people have talked about it, and I tend to agree. So I'm going to say that there's going to be a serious correction in the AI market. Like, there's a bubble there. I think it's going to burst at some point next year. It's going to have more of an impact really on the stock market than anything else. But I think there's going to be a big correction in terms of the amount of investment that's going into AI. But it's not going to stop, AI from being
No.
developed,
Right.
but it is going to impact a lot of people. Some of them are actually innocent, that have, their retirement fund may have investments in some of these companies, whether it's AWS and Amazon or Microsoft or Nvidia or some of these tech companies, because a lot of the deals that they are doing are very circular.
Right.
And so they're,
That's right.
you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of bullshit going on. A lot of this happened during, and I was in the tech sector at the time, back when we had the tech crash in the early 2000s. And to me, it's very reminiscent of that. Like, anybody with AI in their name is getting money, but like, you're starting to see signs, like in the bond market, it's all of a sudden becoming very expensive for these companies to get follow-on financing for a lot of the AI infrastructure. And then the credit default swaps that protect bondholders in case these guys go belly up, that's becoming very expensive. So
Yeah.
I actually look forward to that. I hope it crashes like a motherfucker, personally, because namely because of the people that are involved in it, like Sam Altman and Elon
Correct.
Musk and
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff Bezos and those cats. But anyway, that's one of my predictions.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you on that one. Let me ask this. I'm going to ask this of myself. Answer. Then I want to hear your thoughts. Does
Sure.
Trump finish the year? I say yes.
I say yes, unless he kicks the bucket.
Well,
Yeah.
my thing is that they may have to stick a 2x4 up his ass just to keep him erect.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, like, I think it's pretty clear because, like, left to his own health and vigor, the dude's like sleeping through all of his cabinet meetings, and snoring like an old codger. His like half his face is sliding
Right.
off and drooping
Yeah.
down into his chest. I don't think the man is well. But then, like when they need to give him a speech, I think they pump him full of
They pump him full
Adderall.
of, yes.
Yeah,
Drugs will be involved heavily.
yeah. But I think, like, I don't know, man. I think the course of that, like, I definitely could see him dying in 2026. Like, I'm not ready to make that prediction, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me because I don't think he's well. But yeah, I think like they won't they won't remove him. So like if
No.
he has breath left in his body, he will
Yes.
finish the year. So I agree with you on that. Um,
I do think it's going to become more and more of a spectacle, though, which is
yes.
going to make a lot of Republicans in Congress very uncomfortable. When they go home, it's going to be more difficult to defend. You know, what is going on with this guy? What are you going to do about it? Why are you still supporting him when he's plainly demented? So it's going to be an interesting thing. I do think he makes it to the finish line a year from now, but I think he's going to be severely compromised. And I think with that comes some severe consequences for his party and his enablers. I do. I think
Yeah,
that's
I
going to be a
agree.
big play in it, a big, big play in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that he is. I completely agree. I think he continues to spiral physically and mentally, um, which is a frightening concept when you look at what a madman he is to begin with. But um, yeah, I don't think it's well, like we've probably all had some experience with that in our personal lives with some relatives or what have you.
sure.
But this type of thing doesn't get better.
No,
And you look at all of the pathologies the man has, those are just going to become more exaggerated. I do think, like, getting a little further out from 2026 and a little more sort of into the conspiracy weeds, uh, I I can kind of envision um, Vance and a group of like the ones who want to cement the MAGA authoritarian techno king dictatorship that they want. I could see an internal coup against Trump, but not next year,
yeah,
unless things get really, really bad. But I think before the end of his term, I could, because I don't think that Vance, certainly not Rubio, who's a pathetic shell of a human being and a weak and horrible person.
he's
I
no
don't think
chance.
that. Yeah, I don't think they had like. I don't think any of them could win. I mean, just picking a straw man candidate on the Democratic side, just because he's the front runner now. But like, I think Gavin Newsom would just kill either one of them or anyone right now that they might want to put up. So I think one of those weasels, probably Vance, makes some kind of move to try to oust Trump or push him to the side and take power, and then try not to give up power in going into 2028. That's my conspiracy theory for
Yeah, no,
the longer term.
I follow that. I feel the same way. Sometimes I wonder if I'm actually being rational or am I just following the plot of a movie. But yeah, I think he makes it through this year, 2026, I should say.
Yeah.
And then after that, tune in, tune in next year at this
Yeah,
time to
I
see.
mean, like, who would have thought, like, I mean, like, I don't think you can be too outlandish or ridiculous, because the truth is, who would have thought that we would be where we are? Who would have thought that we would have alienated all of our
Yeah.
trusted allies that we've developed really over the last century, but certainly, post World War II, the last 50 plus years. Well, I say 50 plus, 70, 80 plus years. Um, and all of these countries, I mean, we, like you said it earlier, we're the laughing stock of the world. Uh, Other than the laughing stock, but nobody's really laughing because the stakes are so serious. And we've become untrustworthy. They're withholding intelligence. They're making changes to who they're going to buy their weapons from, who their real allies are, who they can count on, not just militarily but economically. You've got Canada that, probably to their own benefit, but now Canada's making massive investments in their own
Right.
economic future, which is probably good for Canada, bad for us.
Right.
They're making changes to who their trading partners are going to be,
Yeah.
you know, and so, yeah, I mean, yeah. So I guess, along those lines, I guess my prediction is that we continue to, we continue to, undermine our superpower status, in 2026. Um, and I don't know exactly how that's going to manifest, but I think 2026 is going to be a year of a lot of unpleasant surprises and things, that start to manifest because of the just terrible leadership and the lack of values, in this lawless and rogue regime that we have in place
Yeah.
right now.
Well, no doubt about that.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you just one now. What do you think? You think we'll see boots on the ground in Venezuela?
I don't. And the only reason I don't think we will is because I think that for all of his bravado, I think Pete Hegseth is a coward. I think Donald Trump is a coward. Donald Trump, in his core persona, which is wrapped up in all of this, all this web of lies and um, you know, fake story that he's built around himself, is a sniveling little child. Um, he's a little snot-nosed brat who is afraid of his own shadow and was dominated by his psychopathic father. And so I think that he doesn't have the balls to do it. Um, so I don't think we'll see that. Now, hopefully I'm right, because I think that would be a terrible, terrible thing on all levels. Not because not because I'm a fan of the regime in Venezuela,
Correct.
but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
if Maduro were out of there, I think the world would be a better place without a doubt. But we saw what happens when we go in and remove a dictator. You know.
yeah, yeah. It's always a disaster, and because Congress, which is a whole separate topic, but because Congress for decades now has totally abdicated its responsibility to, you know, be the uh, to control whether or not we go to war, um, has allowed American presidents to get involved in all kinds of military adventurism and wars that, don't start out being called wars, but they're wars.
Correct.
And the fact that Congress is not involved means that they're all put on the credit card.
Right.
So I think, like, if we go into war in Venezuela, you're talking about, like, if it's a full-fledged ground war, you're talking another trillion, $2 trillion that gets put on the country's credit card for nothing other than to further enrich companies that we need to actually
Tax.
kill.
Right.
we need like Exxon, Chevron,
Right.
BP, all of these big petroleum companies that are killing the planet, uh, buying off politicians, doing all these terrible things. They need to be put out of business, not given access to, the world's largest oil reserves. But
Yeah.
that's exactly who's pushing the war.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
And for the
Yeah. It's
record,
about,
I've gone, for the record, I say no boots. I agree.
okay.
Um,
Well, let's
was
hope we're
really
both right.
undecided. Was really undecided because I think there's that element of just who knows, you know.
I don't think it's impossible because I mean,
Right.
like literally, I do think they want
Ugh,
to do it. Like if there wasn't a big downside to it, I mean, I think if they do it, I don't think it'll have the rallying effect
no, no, no.
that the Gulf War did because initially, the terrorist attack
Correct.
resulted in W's popularity shooting up, and
Sure.
then we know what happened from there. I think an unprovoked ground, full out war in South America would be immensely unpopular. It goes counter to everything. But then again, like Trump is breaking his promises on everything else. So he promised to be the peace president. Um, so I don't think it's impossible, but yeah, I think like looking at what's realistic, I say no, but who knows?
Who knows, man? All
Yeah.
right. Coming to the top of the hour, I just want to give some personal predictions, maybe observations more than anything else. I used to be a big sports fan, watched it all the time, football, uh, primarily college football. I just continue to care less and less about sports. I think it is a sedative that has been used to basically distract us from the real stuff. Not necessarily maliciously, but I think too many people focus on distractions like sports and it keeps their eye off the real important issues. And I just find myself where I can't even I don't even know who my favorite teams are playing on the weekend. I don't know. I don't see it declining. I think I'm an outlier here, but that's one of my personal predictions that next year at this time, I'll have no idea who's even playing for the national championship in college football.
Yeah, I've gone through the same kind of evolution, Tom. I used to be really into, and I'm not saying I don't. I used to watch those sports, particularly basketball, but especially football, college football, with my dad, and I was pretty into it. I'd get all bent out of shape if my team lost, and
Sure.
that whole type of fandom. And it's become less and less important to me for pretty much the same reasons, as well as just the fact that I'm like, is it really like what relevance does it have?
Correct.
Um, and also too, I think part of it is the money. Like especially at the college level now with the NIL,
It's,
um,
you know,
it's just so cynical now. It's like they're
I do.
like you have college players that are getting multi-million-dollar
I know.
deals, and I'm like, what happened to getting like you got your education paid for? What happened to
You
that?
know, I always advocated for them to get something because I felt like, a lot of times these players that were they were put on the field and then they had a career-ending injury that was millions of dollars to them. I always thought, can you not take a Lloyd's of London policy on your best player so at a bare minimum, if they do, get injured, they will be financially secure kind of thing. But now it's just, again, you're going to see the big teams getting all the money, and it just
Yeah.
takes some of the purity out of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old and cynical, but
No, I
I
think
can't
you're
get
right.
into it.
Yeah.
I just
No, I
can't get
mean,
into it.
I'd rather I'd almost rather them take those sports out of universities and just create farm teams,
Yeah, just yeah,
because that's what
sure,
they are,
right,
and just let them be semi-pro, and then let the universities focus on education, which that's what they should be doing anyway. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm probably an outlier too on it, but it's so it's just like everything else, like the money that's being pumped through it. The NCAA is so obviously in the tank for all the money, and yeah.
To me, there's collusion here. There seems to be a violation of antitrust where you have the NFL that refuses to take a player until he's been in college for 2 years. I mean, where does that exist anywhere else? I mean, if you're a brilliant physicist in high school, any industry, any company in any industry can hire you. Why is it not allowed here? It's because it's
Yeah,
agreement. The
and
NCAA is trying to protect their product, and the NFL's like, hey, we have a free farm league.
yeah, I think the NBA used to do that, and then they changed it, and they were like, yeah, so like I think I evolved on that, because initially I was like, well, it'd be good, kids should go get a college education. I'm like, well, if you're an incredible basketball player, football player, whatever, and they want
Right,
to pay you, and
right,
you're 18 years old, go go play. I mean,
exactly. That's how it
make your
happens
money while you
everywhere else.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's kind of a strange, I do think it's a troubling value hierarchy in our society. I'm honestly thinking that, like, these baseball players, all of these professional athletes that can make, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, is
right.
just insane to me.
Yeah,
But it's the way, it is what it is. But I do think it doesn't speak well of our society that that's where people can make all the money. Because again, I agree. Like the whole concept of watching sports is a huge distraction. And I think it is a distraction in terms of what's really happening in the world, what our priorities should be. But yeah, I
yeah. I mean, my thought is if I want to like run this against the CEO compensation packages, we pay professional athletes that can perform and deliver the result we want as an audience because they're entertainers in the end. Well, there's only a handful of people on the planet that can do that. So I think, their compensation is set based against the scarcity model. The CEO model, however, the CEOs that I've worked under in major corporations, I would think that in the state of one state, like Florida alone, there would be at least 100,000 people that could do as good, if not better, a job than the CEO that I worked under at a big telephone company. That is cronyism. That's rent seeking. They're paying themselves that because they can, right? That's it. That's where the real problem is. The very
I
CEO
agree.
is also the
Yeah.
chairman of board of directors that writes his compensate or his or her compensation package. Well, hello.
Oh, it's yeah. No, I mean, you and I are both have you know most, if not all, of our careers, tied up in corporate America. And I don't think there's any doubt um, that what you're saying is true. I think despite some of the reforms that have happened, um, back, I still, I'm dating myself, but like I actually worked for WorldCom back when they had their huge, accounting
Bernie,
scandal. So
Bernie
like back
Ebbers.
in the world, yeah, Bernie, I had to go give presentations to Bernie Ebbers personally,
No kidding.
and he was as much of a dick as you could have imagined. And
I read
people
about. Yeah.
talked about that. Yeah, he was a prick, but yeah, no, I mean, the corporate malfeasance back in those days, it's only gotten worse. The boards are by and large rubber stamps for these guys. And
Mm-hmm.
if you track, it's almost like the new feudalism, like neo-feudalism. You have
It is.
these guys are now, um, it depends on how you slice it. But in the more extreme cases, you had probably back, post like post World War II, as we were, recovering from the Great Depression and things started booming, you had CEOs who were making 20 or 30 times that of an
Mm-hmm.
average worker. And while the average number might be somewhere around 3, 4, 500, when you actually look at the more extreme cases, they're now making 8, 900 times that of a basic worker. And it's unconscionable.
It
They
is.
don't deserve it. There's it is rent seeking. It is simply because they can get away with it,
Yeah.
and because you know that again, I think part of this is our society. We're saying, like we've said as a society, that it's okay, and that we look up to these guys and we're
That's
like,
right.
well, he makes 100 million a
I know.
year, so he must be incredible. And it's
I know.
no, it's because the boards are in
Mm.
his pocket.
Yeah.
It's because we've structured corporations so that the only responsibility they have are to shareholders, and they're
Correct.
cheating. Like,
Correct.
trust me, when the C level is making that much money, they're cheating shareholders too.
Correct. Correct.
And
Yep.
yeah, it is a racket, man. It is a huge racket. We need to completely overhaul not just corporate governance. We need to change the way that we charter corporations in this country, and we need to make it so that labor has a seat at the table. We need to make it so that the environment has a seat at the table, and we need to realistically or completely reassess what role corporations play in our society. And I'm not saying like they should be eliminated, but there should be massive corporate reform that happens. I've been a corporate minion my whole life. I've
Yep.
gone
Me
all the
too.
way up to being a fairly senior executive at certain companies, and I know how they operate. And we are eating ourselves by letting them operate the way that they do. It is honestly, it's a crime,
Yeah.
and we're doing it to ourselves. We could do so much better. They should not be allowed
No.
to participate in the political system the way that they are. They are absolutely corrupting it. They're corrupt. They're corrupting it at every level. They're
Yep.
corrupting government agencies. They're buying
Yep.
politicians individually. They're buying political parties. They are creating advantages that are just like at every level that make it impossible for us to have a
Correct.
political system that represents you, me, and regular people. And that's why we've got the unequal
That's correct.
outcomes that we've
That's
got.
correct.
So I'm with you on that. You hit a nerve, obviously,
Well, I mean,
but
it, it is what it is. It's time,
yeah,
the message here is always, everyone should know if you're watching, the underlying theme here is to wake everybody else up to this blatant wrongdoings. I mean, there's no way to say it. Like we could be by far the greatest example of how you should have a living place, a country, whatever you may want to call it.
yeah,
We could make America so much better if you only realize that the people who have their hands on the levers are completely dividing us so that they can prevent that very thing from happening so that we
yeah.
can't get control.
Beautifully. That was well said, Tom. I think you encapsulated that really well, and that's why here at the Reset we stand against the oligarchs. We stand against the perpetuation of this system, and it's neo-feudalism at its worst. And we don't believe that the regular people in this country, the working class, the middle class, we shouldn't be serfs.
Right.
These people should not be the ones who decide whether or not we have
Right.
access to health care
Yeah.
or a roof over our heads. And they should not get to predetermine political and economic outcomes, just so they can rake in another billion or another $1 trillion,
That's right.
which is exactly what's happening. So I'm with
Yeah.
you there. And then on back to the whole 2026 thing. I think that I do think as difficult a year as 2026 is almost certainly going to be, and it's going to be scary and at times demoralizing. I'm not making specific predictions here, but I think that there are going to be some pleasant surprises that come along as well. I'm hoping maybe this is more of a hopeful thing, but I think that we're going to see some new leadership emerge. I'm certainly hoping for that, but I'm hoping for some people that can articulate um, a program and platform that provides some answers to what we're seeing. So that's something that I'm going to be looking for.
Yep.
And whether it's a Graham Plattner at the Senate level or somebody new that comes along that might be a presidential hopeful, or
Slot
whether
committee,
it's just
maybe. I don't know.
yeah, or whether it's just the continued development of a movement, in terms of I'd
Right.
love to see No Kings coalesce into more of a coherent platform
Yeah.
that's going to take on the oligarch class.
Yeah.
But that's something that I'm going to be looking for, and that I'm hopeful emerges as well as we face some really big challenges in 2026.
Absolutely. No matter what, we're going to bring it to you weekly here on the Reset. John and I totally plan to move forward in 2026. So if you could kindly like us, subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. We'd really appreciate it. John, do you have anything else?
No, I appreciate that plug. We want to keep bringing you meaningful content, lively discussion about what's happening in the country, and we're gonna continue to invest our time and money into building out this channel. And again, anything you can do to support us will be greatly appreciated.
All right. Yep. Very much so. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye.